Ever since I was young, my parents taught me to cherish my belongings. Cherishing what you have not only makes it last longer, but also fosters a sense of attachment. Looking back, I realized that what they were really teaching me was to value this mindset and sensitivity. Because I held on to that sentiment, I'm happy now. My name is Michael, and after graduating from college, I joined a major real estate company in my hometown. I was assigned to the sales department, but being in a regional branch meant I had to do various tasks beyond sales, such as property management, guiding tours, and negotiations. Despite the busy days, I managed because of my girlfriend, Laura, whom I've been dating since college. We've been together for almost 4 years, planning to marry once my job stabilized. Michael, can you take care of this too? Isn't this your task? I've got a negotiation and a tour to guide right now. Sorry, but please handle it. Oh, come on. Though I often ended up dealing with tasks like these, not just from Jack but other colleagues too. I worked hard, knowing my overtime pay was solid and saving for the future. My only moments of relaxation are the dates with my girlfriend and eating fried chicken at the diner I frequent the day after payday. It's not that the diner's meals are expensive, but their fried chicken, which I've been eating since I was a kid, holds deep memories for me and remains something special that I savor even now. I don't waste money on anything else. I diligently save for the future. I've always been one to take care of my belongings. I still wear clothes I bought in college and keep furniture clean and well maintained. However, Laura often complained about this. Really? You still have that outfit? Let's get something trendy. What? But it's still good. I don't want to go out with you looking so outdated. Buy something new online. So she'd complain about my clothes and furniture being old-fashioned or stingy. Since starting work after college, Laura developed a taste for new things. Growing up with older siblings, she was used to hand-me-downs and became drawn to new items once she had her own money. Yet she'd quickly lose interest. This wasn't what I expected. Maybe I'll sell it on a resale app. Selling things shortly after buying them on resale apps was a point of disagreement for us. I intended to get everything new for our marriage, but constantly replacing items would drain any amount of money. Even with resale apps, expenses would only grow. I hoped Laura would eventually see the downsides and learn to cherish what we have. But that day never came. One day, a property viewing I was responsible for, thanks to Jack, got suddenly canceled. When I informed my boss, concerned about my recent workload, he gave me the afternoon off. With a rare free afternoon, I thought of inviting Laura to a movie. But she didn't respond to calls or messages. Knowing she was off, I went to her apartment. There, I saw something unbelievable. The company car was parked in the visitor's lot I use when visiting Laura. Feeling a sense of foreboding, I watched from a distance and saw Laura coming down the stairs of the apartment. Next to her was Jack, with his hand around her waist. Jack had dumped his work on me to secretly meet with Laura. Moreover, he had lied to the company, claiming he had a meeting with a seller. Unaware of my stern presence, the two of them headed towards the company car. It seemed they were quite accustomed to this, as Jack often seemed to have Laura in the company car. Overwhelmed and unable to act, all I could do was watch as the car carrying Jack and Laura drove away. Later, it came out that Jack had been using the company car for personal use and he resigned from the company. Of course, I was the one who reported it. The dashcam had clearly captured Jack's secret meetings with Laura. I confronted Laura with the evidence and initiated our breakup. Instead of apologizing, she mocked me. "You're such an old-fashioned guy, I'm better off without you." With those words, she ended our 4-year relationship and walked away. Finding out about her affair with Jack was a shock, but I kept telling myself it was for the best to have ended things before marrying someone capable of such actions. To forget her, I threw myself even more into my work. Months after the breakup, as I began to recover from the disappointment, a turning point came my way. It was raining that day, and the pedestrian bridge I used on my way home was slippery. Displeased with the wet conditions underfoot, I heard a sound like someone falling amidst the noise of cars driving on wet roads as I descended the stairs. Turning around, I saw an elderly lady had fallen at the bottom of the stairs. "Are you okay?" Without thinking, I called out, and the elderly lady, crouching down, whispered in a faint voice, "It hurts, it hurts." I immediately arranged for an ambulance and picked her up to keep her dry. Remembering a shop nearby, I covered her with my jacket and ran. Fortunately, the diner I frequented was open, and I rushed in with the elderly lady. The female clerk was taken aback when I suddenly burst in. I explained the situation to her and helped the elderly lady into a comfortable position for her sore leg, making sure she stayed still. After a while, the ambulance arrived, and the elderly lady was taken to the hospital. Perhaps the pain had subsided, as she was able to communicate clearly with the paramedics. Surprisingly, the female clerk insisted on accompanying her in the ambulance, and I, being easily persuaded, left the elderly lady in her care and watched the ambulance leave. It might have been fortunate that I handed my business card to the elderly lady when asked for my name just before she and a clerk got into the ambulance. A few days later, the elderly lady visited the branch where I work. When I instinctively stood up, she laughed amusingly and sat down at the desk I was managing. It turned out her injury was minor, just a light bruise on her leg. According to the paramedics, my actions in immediately moving her indoors to a dry place and keeping her still prevented the injury from worsening. After a round of thanks and polite exchanges, the elderly lady expressed her desire to be shown around some apartments. I promptly introduced her to suitable listings and arranged for a viewing. The apartments were senior-friendly, with elevators and barrier-free access in all rooms. When I mentioned that hospitals and supermarkets were nearby, the elderly lady nodded in satisfaction and said she would like to sign a contract later. A few days later, the elderly lady returned to the store, but this time she was not alone. The woman by her side was beautiful and seemed somewhat hesitant and troubled. The elderly lady said, "This time, I'd like to show my granddaughter the apartments." It turned out the elderly lady wanted to buy an apartment for her granddaughter. The elderly lady appeared to be wealthy and had initially visited me for this purpose. Misunderstanding that she was the buyer, I had shown her properties suited for the elderly. When I hurriedly apologized, she smiled and said, "I couldn't bring myself to interrupt you when I saw how hard you were trying to find the right property for me." While we were having this exchange, I tried to find properties that met her requirements, but the granddaughter, the key person in question, was too reserved to make a decision. Since the conversation wasn't progressing, they decided to come back another day and left. As the granddaughter greeted us politely, I didn't think much of it and simply saw them off. On the weekend following payday, my first day off, I headed to my favorite diner, looking forward to my usual treat. In the early afternoon, when the diner was quieter, I took my usual seat by the window, ready to order the fried chicken set I always enjoyed. I was startled when I saw the female clerk who came out from the back. It was the same woman who had visited with the grandmother the other day. "Nice to meet you, actually. We've met before, haven't we? I'm Emily. Thank you for your help the other day." As she smiled warmly at me, I was too surprised to say anything, and then Emily began to explain the situation. This diner was run by her late grandfather. It seems her grandfather passed away at a young age, and her grandmother managed the diner while raising her daughter by herself. Perhaps due to her efforts, the diner became successful, and the stocks they invested in also paid off. Now of a certain age, the grandmother has retired. She is currently a wealthy investor, actively trading stocks. The diner is now managed by Emily's mother, the grandmother's daughter. and the clerk who had accompanied the injured grandmother in the ambulance that day was Emily's mother. So, what about you? I'm mainly in charge of cooking in the kitchen, making my grandmother's signature fried chicken and other dishes. Both she and her mother knew me well. I have been a regular customer since childhood, visiting at least once a month during high school, college, and even after becoming a working adult. Not to mention that helping her grandmother was the decisive factor. That's why she greeted me politely in the restaurant. Given the presence of other customers, I was invited to the break room during their 3 p.m. break time, where both she and her mother expressed their gratitude again. It seems her mother was too panicked at the time of the incident and only realized my involvement after her grandmother's condition stabilized. While the three of us were talking, Emily's mother dropped a bombshell, revealing that I was the inspiration behind Emily's decision to start making fried chicken. Back in high school, when Emily was still in junior high, she admired how I enjoyed their fried chicken, which motivated her to want to make fried chicken that could bring such joy to others. Beside her fast-talking mother, Emily was desperately trying to change the subject, her face turning bright red, which was quite memorable. Emily shared that her dream was to one day launch her own fried chicken food truck. She spoke shyly about wanting to perfect her grandfather's fried chicken recipe and share it with people everywhere, and there was something radiant about her as she said this. Working in the diner's kitchen was part of her training for that dream. There's actually another reason I called you here. With that, Emily headed to the kitchen and returned with a tray. On top of that, there was the fried chicken set I always ordered, but the colors seemed a bit different. Instead of pepper, the accompanying sauce was tartar sauce. I made a new version. Would you mind giving me your feedback? I was thrilled to try the fried chicken set. The seasoning was similar to what I usually had, but the coarse ground pepper gave it a stimulating flavor. It paired wonderfully with the tartar sauce. When I shared my thoughts on the taste, Emily earnestly took notes in her notebook. After I finished the set, Emily asked if I would be willing to taste test again, and I happily agreed. Grateful for my help, they insisted on not charging me, and I left the diner that day. Seeing Emily's determination to pursue her dream warmed my heart, but on my way back, I encountered someone I wished I hadn't. I saw Laura walking with a tough-looking man. And it wasn't Jack. He had a dangerous aura, clearly different from the average person. Laura, arm in arm with this man, seemed like a completely different person. According to a mutual college friend, Laura had been frequenting clubs and hanging out with shady people, apparently cheating all along, even while she was with me. When they heard we had broken up, they couldn't wait to spill everything, almost in disbelief. I felt a profound sense of relief that I hadn't ended up marrying such a person. Emily and I, sharing a love for fried chicken, hit it off well. Instead of just before payday, I started visiting the diner on days off and before holidays. When I visited on a day off, it was almost as if they were waiting to take me to the back for a tasting session of new fried chicken recipes. As we exchanged various opinions, I found myself drawn to Emily's personality. One day, her grandmother came to my workplace asking to be shown some real estate catalogs for apartments. I immediately arranged it and drove her in a company car to the desired apartment complex. The apartment was newly built with excellent security, and it was reasonably priced. After the viewing, as we returned to the car, I asked her, "What did you think? It's a new apartment, so it must have been nice, right? Perfect for Emily," I thought. I had chosen this apartment assuming the grandmother intended to buy it for Emily. I also hoped Emily would live somewhere with good security, but the grandmother's response took me by surprise. "Yes, it would be perfect for you and Emily to live in," she said. I burst out laughing. Later, I learned that Emily had had a crush on me since high school. Both her grandmother and mother were aware but had only supported her silently until now. However, my act of helping the grandmother confirmed my good character, and with her taking a liking to me, they began to actively set the stage. I wasn't entirely opposed to the idea, and spending time with her felt meaningful. However, this meant I had something important to tell her grandmother. "Grandma, I'm afraid I can't sell this apartment to you." "Oh, what is that?" "Because I'm dating Emily and plan to buy this apartment myself in the future." When I said that earnestly, the grandmother laughed and replied, "I knew you would say something like that if it was you." That night, I rushed to the diner and confessed my feelings to Emily, who was busy preparing a test batch of fried chicken in the kitchen. After 2 years of dating, I proposed to her. Of course, it was in the very apartment I had promised her grandmother. To commemorate our special occasion, Emily and I decided to take her grandmother out for a meal as a way of saying thank you. We chose a high-end restaurant in the city, intending it as a gesture of gratitude for all her kindness. But an unexpected incident occurred there. While enjoying our meal and conversation, a woman suddenly approached and started talking to me. When I glanced over, I immediately recognized who it was. Despite the unbelievably flashy hair and clothes, there was no doubt it was my ex, Laura. She was smirking at me, accompanied by a man with a rather imposing appearance. At a fancy place like this, even a poor person in tattered clothes can dine, she said as her opening remark, leaving me speechless. 3 years after our breakup, she was still mocking me. Anger surged within me at Laura's taunts, but with Emily and the grandmother present, I felt it was wrong to involve them in my past grudges, so I remained silent. What was supposed to be a celebratory occasion turned sour. Feeling sorry for the two who were unaware, Emily suddenly exclaimed, "Ah," and stood up, pointing at Laura's boyfriend, who had been mocking me with her. "Grandma, this man, he's Jin, the scam artist." The word scam artist sent a chill through the room. Laura seemed confused by Emily's words, but the man beside her turned pale upon seeing the faces of the grandmother and Emily. "You, how dare you show your face in front of me?" The grandmother's voice, fiercer than I'd ever heard, filled the diner. This was no ordinary situation. Then, the man grabbed a butter knife from the table. Instinctively, my body moved. I grabbed the hand about to swing the butter knife, seized the flashy patterned shirt, swept the feet, and in a flash, I performed a back throw, neutralizing the scam artist armed with a weapon. "Michael, sorry, I just reacted when he grabbed the knife. I practiced Aikido, a Japanese martial art in high school. Moreover, it was quite practical, and I extensively trained in techniques to subdue opponents armed with knife-like object. My clubmates and I used to visit the diner, but neither of them knew I was a black belt in Aikido." Afterwards, the grandmother called the police, and Jin, the scam artist, was arrested. Jin was a leader in a scam group and had previously swindled few thousands of dollars from one of the grandmother's acquaintances. Though a police report had been filed, they never expected him to appear in person. Laura, unknowingly involved with Jin, was also taken in for questioning as a person of interest. Although the celebration took an unexpected turn, with the scam artist caught, it ended well. Emily, impressed by my Aikido throw, blushed and said she fell for me all over again, which made me quite satisfied. The grandmother thanked me, saying I brought luck, and later, we three enjoyed a meal together again. Not at a fancy restaurant, but at the beloved diner. Years after we got married, Emily launched her dream fried chicken food truck. I became the branch manager of a real estate office. Despite our busy lives, our tasting sessions and menu planning with Emily remained fulfilling. Soon, a new family member is expected to join these tasting sessions.